Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I am delighted to be joined by Lawrence Connolly and Anthony Haggerty. And we enter the age of Ange. Tony Haggerty. These games are normally, these are dead rubbers sometimes, these are bounce games, friendly games, played at a pace. Today we've got 3/3 of 30 minutes. It was a game of 3/3, wasn't
it? A game of 3/3, and to misquote Jack Nicholson, Sheffield Wednesday couldn't handle the youth. You know what I mean? So there you go.
There you go indeed. I was impressed with quite a lot of the individual performances, but straight away, Lawrence, watching that team, watching the energy, I think we were kind of pinned back, I've got to say, in the first third, but certainly in the second and the third sections of that game, despite the youth, we looked confident, assured, we played quite a high line, we were harrying, we were pressing. What was your overall thoughts about the game?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard Ange likes a pressing game, played at high tempo, and that was certainly high tempo for a friendly, wasn't it? It was some of the young boys. Well, what a goal from Moffat! Montgomery looked good, Boy Lewis. So there looks to be a bit of quality there that hopefully we'll see more of during the season. Listen, 3 different goal scorers. Hjelde looks fit as well. He looks to have lost a few pounds. Taking his goal well. It's a promising start. What more could we ask for?
Absolutely. I'm going to obviously bring in our viewers. Tony, we are blessed to have a great cult following, the ACSOM cult, and they're here in force. They're commenting on YouTube, Facebook.
Green Oyster cult. Mm-hmm.
That's the ones, and Twitter as well. Francie W, welcome back to the show. You are watching us on YouTube. Anybody watching on YouTube, get subscribing. We were a couple short, 12,500 earlier. We're giving away a Verve Platinum disc for 2.1 million sales of Urban Hymns. It's a real deal. It's a BPI approved one. Don't ask how we got our hands on it, but we're giving it away. So get subscribing. By the end of the month, one of you viewers will have that. And Francie W, who has a liking both for Celtic and Aston Villa, says, very impressed with today's showing. Great pressing, crisp passing and possession. Young Moffat stood out. Now, Lawrence has already mentioned young Moffat. Let's have a wee chat about him. He's a striking wee player. We love a wee ginger-haired player at Celtic, Anthony Haggerty. What was your thoughts on the kid? That's the first time I've seen him.
Wee buzzbomb, wasn't he? He seemed to be everywhere. Obviously his hairstyle caught the imagination as well, but he scored a beautiful goal, took it really, really well, but just was keen to impress. And you know what? You looked at today, results aren't important, but it was a good win and it was very enjoyable. You've heard the manager talk about various things, and Alan Morrison put in the group chat that we scored 2 goals from 2 high regains. So that's kind of part of the manager's gospel there, winning the ball high up the park and scoring. So, just various things like that, and it's very early, but it's just nice to see things like Lawrence said there, a Yeti looking sharp. Thought Shaw was impressive as well. Moffat really caught the eye, and a youngster who took his chance to impress and certainly did so. And I can't overemphasise that his goal was cracking. A beautiful goal. And then Odsonne Edouard scoring there, icing on the cake. But, most people hate pre-season friendlies. And when they heard it was 3.5 hours, they were probably like that. But I think a lot of Celtic supporters would have enjoyed that today, just to see where we're at and see Angie's reign kicks off. And, and there was some decent performances there,
Oh, there certainly was. I mean, Owen Moffat, for me, as I say, it's probably something that won't happen this season with the Colts playing. He was one of these guys who was a bit of an unknown quantity for me, Tony. So to watch him, and as you say, he was looking for the ball at every opportunity, confident on the ball, quite tricky when he got it. He liked to take on a man. That finish was outstanding. And earlier on today, both in the pre-match and also in the ACSOM Bulletin, we were talking about who's going to be the young one to watch, Lawrence Haggerty, is he one that is going to go back into the Colts team, or do you think he's playing his way? I know we've only seen him for half an hour. I'm not getting over confident, or an hour rather. But is he one of the guys that's given a good showing to Ange, and Ange might say, you could be in the first team squad this season?
He's definitely pushed his cause, hasn't he? He's, I'd expect him to see him in the next 2 games. I'm one of the guys that likes pre-season friendlies, where it's 3/3 or 2/2 or whatever. It's watching Celtic. It's been a while, but something struck me about all 3/3, not both. The team looked really together, and they pressed hard. They didn't look disjointed, which often you see in friendlies, especially if the games are split into 3/3. It looks a bit disjointed. They didn't. They seem to have, already be adopting Ange's style across all kind of three teams that we saw in that game. So that was good. But yeah, I think Moffat's definitely kind of pushed his case, and we're going to see a bit of him in the other 2 friendlies. After seeing that, Ange's got to keep him in contention, hasn't he, for places in the next 2 games?
You would hope so. And another comment coming in, this time from Ghastly Baz Songs, decent 3-1, Edward. Thoughts Shaw and Moffat impressed. When a player like Shaw comes in, the commentary team were talking about the fee or otherwise, Tony, they're bringing in a player compensation fee, etc. Again, he was described as a box-to-box midfielder. Sometimes I think that's a bit of a lazy description of a player, but he seems to fit that bill, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he got up and down pretty quickly and smartly, and he ticked the box. You wanted to see him impress, and he impressed. Granted, it's the first game under the new manager's reign, but you would have noticed if he didn't impress. So it's a good sign that straight out the blocks, he started very well, and long may that continue. And I also got to say that they did well to recover from the early setback. I'm sure there'd have been a sinking feeling when they went a goal down. First thing that Barkas has to do is pick the ball out the net. I'm not having a go at Barkas. It was a tidy goal, good finish. But they played their way back into that game the way the manager wanted them to. And Shaw in particular caught the eye. Soro ran about as well. Moffat. There was some right good performances spread throughout the team. And, it augurs well, as Lauren said there, there seemed a real togetherness there. Even Eddie, when he came on, was looking for the ball, and and that was a cracking finish at the end. Still retaining his sharpness. It's easy for a guy like Eddie not to bother, switch off or go through the motions. But he wanted a goal. You could see that from when he came on. He was making lots of runs, and I think in the commentary they said that Joe Ledley and the commentator was saying that it's hard when Edward's making runs and youngsters and he maybe picking them out because he's not playing with the calibre of play, which I thought was a bit harsh. But when he did get the chance and he made that run and he got the ball, he scored a lovely finish. So it's nice to see him able to do that. How long can they hold on to him? That's the $64,000 question, isn't it? But good to see him at least looking in the mood.
It certainly was, because I don't know if he has that same kind of knack that Samaras had of looking disinterested sometimes, Tony, or if he was genuine disinterested at times last season. Noel Doran, who of the youngsters stood out for you today? Well, there's quite a few of the youngsters that we know a bit about, right? So guys like Leo Connell, because he's been capped, he comes from Manchester United, he's played 40 games last season, so you know about him. Luka Connell, again, played first team football for Bolton. Colin Watt always goes on about him, so you know a wee bit about Luka Connell. But it was more of the other players that I was impressed with. I thought, even someone like Ben McPherson, who might not have stood out too much, but he seemed strong on the ball. He was happy and confident to take the ball from defence and try and turn it into attack. We see a lot of that from Chris Ayer. I'm not comparing the player to Ayer, but he was previously unknown to me, and I think young kids like that, Lawrence, even McPherson, a player I didn't really know much about, has done himself no harm, even if he's going to be part of the Colts squad next season. You're kind of thinking he's still, he's given Ange something to think about.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, I don't think there was any players that let themselves down. They were all trying really hard to impress Ange. It looks like they bought into his system and style of play. It looks like people on the, had instructions before they went on the park and understood them, which wasn't always the case kind of last season. If they get a season in the Colts playing the same style of football, you know, they know there's progression now, hopefully, to the first team. They can say that. Ange's got the track record of developing youth wherever he's been. So it's something for the guys to think about. You know, the boy went to Bayern, Liam Morrison, he was in saying, like, in the paper saying one of his big decisions for leaving was he couldn't see a pathway. So hopefully this kind of puts an arrest on the loss of the young talent.
Yeah.
You know, well, obviously, a lot of them get the run out there. They've got to be absolutely buzzing, haven't they? You know, it's playing for Celtic for the first time.
We've seen a lot of that, though, Lawrence. A lot of the young kids leaving. You know, even Okoflex in the summer away to West Ham, that pathway previously was not there for the young kids. And now, even if they're not going to be part of the first team this season, they're playing competitive football. They're not playing against other 17 and 18-year-olds. So I think that's massive. Robert Arbuckle comes in. He's obviously been impressed also with our new hero, Muffet, and he's making wee Mick Hucknall, he calls him. Well, hopefully money isn't too tight to mention Boom Boom, Tony Haggerty, and we can bring in a few players before the Midtjylland game. I think when we're looking also at some of the other players who we know plenty about, I was looking at Soro's performance. Now, he's a player that, you know, largely you think he came in with Turnbull, he done well, but actually when you look back, he fell back out of favour. He didn't play a great deal of games, you know, in the latter part the last season, Tony. Is that another wee reminder that Soro could well be pivotal to our charge towards a league title next season?
Well, you know, as you say, he was in and out the team, wasn't it? That dents your confidence a wee bit, you know. But new manager, new slate, you go again, as Jim would say. You move on, you go again. Let's see what you've got again. And you know, he slipped a couple of times today, didn't he? I don't know if he had the right footwear on. He seemed to be on the floor a couple of times. But you know, I like Soro. Everybody likes Soro, but there's a feeling that they need a wee bit more brute strength in there to go alongside them. You know, and I like Soro as a footballer. I think he's a tidy footballer, but I also think they maybe need a bit more height presence in there, and he can, you know, somebody that can maybe just anchor that and let him buzz around. But you know, the one thing he always does is he likes a tackle. You know, he doesn't shirk it, and he's not going to. And that was the one thing that you thought, right, you'll need to watch yourself moving forward. Your natural enthusiasm and exuberance, you know, a bit like me in the chair on Monday, when seemingly I was jumping around and going a bit mental, and people couldn't handle that. So, but you know, you're blissfully unaware of these things. But and maybe Soro was blissfully unaware of the fact that he was flying in and snapping in. But you know, the makings of a footballer are there. He just now has to prove that he's worthy of an extended run in the team. And I think the boy can play, but I just always feel that he maybe needs some height presence in there alongside him. You know? That's
absolutely.
My gut feeling on that.
You remember one of the things O'Neill said, actually, with hindsight, was that he felt Celtic had been bullied for far too long by Rangers when he took over back in 2000, Tony. And then you start looking at some of the players he was introducing into the Celtic team, and they all had that stature, didn't they? They had that athleticism, that strength, the height. And it's not as simple as just getting big players in and all that kind of thing. But as you said, you need that balance in Scottish football.
You get good big players in. There's a difference. Mm-hmm. You know, they were an intimidating presence, but they were all good footballers in their own right. You know, they could play football. So not only did they intimidate, but they were good at their job. You know, they stood up to everything. So there's a difference. No, I'm not talking about just getting somebody in who's big. I'm talking about getting a good big footballer in there. You know, both. And they are around. You can't find them. O'Neill found them. You know, so I think it's important that we have a look at that as well. We have to.
Without a doubt. Now, Liam Reid comes in and he points out again, Muffet really stood out as a player with great potential. You mentioned earlier, Tony, that we lost an early goal. We weren't blaming Barkas. The goal had been scored before we finished the pre-match. We were a goal down before we finished the pre-match. Lawrence, looking at that side, obviously we've seen a bit of Barkas, we've seen a bit of Bain. There's talk that perhaps Hazard will be going for a loan spell, maybe to Dundee. Where are we with the goalkeeper situation? Are we running with Barkas as a number one, Bain as backup? and then the third choice being one of the younger players at the club? Or do you still feel that we need to strengthen in that position?
For me, Bain's never your number one. I think he's had enough chances, and for me, it's not it. And Barkey, as Big Ange calls him, I think it's probably due a chance. Again, play him through, see what I've got. But it's a position that's probably is a worry. If Hazard goes out on loan, does it mean we're going to keep Ross Doohan and sign another? I just don't see the benefit of keeping Scott Bain. If Barkey's due another chance and has a good pre-season, maybe we don't need to sign another keeper. But just now, I'm probably saying it's a worry position for me, and I'd be looking for a number one.
Still a concern. What do you reckon, Tony?
I still think we need another goalkeeper. Yeah, I think the Celtic fans just aren't convinced about Barkey or whatever we're calling him this season. That, and I didn't blame Barkas for the goal, but as you say, the pre-match hadn't finished and Celtic were a goal down, and I feel sorry for Barkas. Just everything that seems to get hit towards the goal seems to be getting in, and it's just one of those things. But I would say we still need a decent goalkeeper there to come in and maybe take over from the likes of Barkas and Bain, because I just think the Celtic supporters don't feel confident with either or. They've never fully convinced, But another one that impressed me was Hjelde. I've not seen too much of Hjelde, but I mean, he got rave reviews at Ross County, and he looks the part. He looks a tidy, accomplished player, and another one who could maybe do with getting a run of games. And under Ange's Lawrence said there he likes his youth players. He will give them their chance. Now it's up to them to take it. I don't read too much into the result, but I look at performances and I look at if a player looks tidy and accomplished, and I picture them in the first team, because there's no pressure there, but the pressure is on the player to impress. And players like Hjelde, Moffat, Shaw, Soro did today, which I would fully expect. But it's the first game back. But you just sort of you pick up on attitudes as well, and all of them seem to have the right attitude. They wanted it and play themselves into contention for a regular first team slot this season, which hopefully is what the managers instill on them, saying there are 11 hoop jerseys there up for grabs. You show me why I should play you against Midtjylland or against Hearts on the opener. You've got between now and then to show that, and it's not long, but you get your attitude spot on, you can play your way into that Celtic team.
It looks as though Lawrence has been called into another discussion elsewhere, Tony. Now Tam Mannion comes in very interestingly, because it's an ex-player close to my heart, is Neely Mockin, as you know, and Tam points out that young Owen Moffat is from Denny, so that's good to know, because obviously we have history with Denny and with Neely Mockin. Now Lawrence looks as though he might be coming back in. You mentioned Hjelde, Tony. There's another point coming up here from follower Celtic. Good wee game, Moffat. Hjelde looked good. We've heard a lot about Hjelde, virtue of, as you said before, John Hughes comparing him to Virgil van Dijk, and I always think it's unfair for players to get these comparisons at such a young age. He's only 17. But you'll remember, Tony, Hjelde's dad, who played for Nottingham Forest, Jon Olav Hjelde, he played for Forest in the 90s and in the early 2000s. And so he's obviously from good footballing stock. And I'll tell you something, he looked so accomplished. I mean, there was 3 or 4 moments there I took the note that he almost played a sweeper's role where, he was backing up his fullbacks, he was just sweeping it up. And once he had the ball at his feet, he was just looking up and picking out passes. The actual age of that player, you've got to forget about it if the ability is there. We spoke about it earlier, Tony, about the young player who is maybe too far advanced at this stage to go back to Tier 5 in the Colts team. Do you think Leo Hjelde is that player?
I think the manager seems to be giving him every opportunity to prove he's that player. I work on that adage: if you're young enough, you're good enough. If you possess the talent and the ability, you can play. You need to see Hjelde pressure situations. But he looks the part. He looks okay, and my thoughts on these things. You let players breathe. You let them, and if you're going to play them in the team, at some point they will make mistakes because of that inexperience. But the only way to get it is to play them. That experience is to play them and make them more confident in their own ability. I hate the Van Dijk comparisons, but if somebody like John Hughes is asked a question, then he's given a straight answer. But those kind of things, you just let players breathe and let them mature and let them do their thing. All they want to do is play football to the best of their ability and to the highest standard possible. And if you bring somebody like Hjelde into the Celtic first team, then the raw material's there. You're going to have to accept that with raw material comes rookie mistakes. And can Celtic afford that this season? I conjecture that they can't. But the only way you're going to find out if the boy can hack it or not is to play him. So that's the catch-22. And the manager likes his youth players, likes to improve them and make them better. That's what football management's all about. So Ange, that's why he's getting the big bucks to make these kind of calls.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great, and I'm a big supporter of bringing in youth. It's in the best traditions of Celtic Football Club, Tony, as you know. But you're playing Midtjylland. It could be 5 minutes to go on the clock, and there is no margin for error at that stage. And that's when, and by the way, I know any player can make errors. So we've seen it time and time again from experienced players. But it's at that stage with the inexperience that you're hoping something like that doesn't happen to young kids. So it's hard to bring them through and give them the game time when every game is a must-win. It was interesting that when they were talking about Ross County, the commentator was calling them Ross City on the Celtic TV commentary. So I'm not quite sure where he was from and what his knowledge of Scottish football was, or if it was a Sheffield Wednesday stream that we were just putting on the Celtic TV channel. I'm not too sure. But let's talk about Luka Connell, just in case Colin Watch tuning in. Lawrence Connolly. Luka Connell, his international under-21 boss said that he's wasted the last 18 months at Celtic. Last season, he was at Queen's Park. He certainly looks confident on the ball. I don't think he's a runner. I think he struggles to get back if we're chasing possession. What was your thoughts on the half hour we saw of Luka Connell?
He looked tidy enough. He's definitely a footballer. He's got good touch, good eye for a pass. If he's not a runner, I think he'll need to develop that in his game if he's going to stay in Ange's team. It's kind of that's what it comes down to. I don't think it would suit Ange's style of football, but he's definitely. I think when we signed him, a lot of Celtic fans will think, let's see this boy get a chance, and it's have to agree. The last 18 months, did he really get a chance? Out on loan at Queen's Park, at least it's better than he's getting some competitive football. But yeah, I'd like to see the boy get a chance. But if he turns out not to be a runner, I don't think he's going to fit in Ange's style of play, which is a shame because I think he looks a decent player. But it's got to be whatever's best for the team. On young Hjelde, though, you'll remember the week before John Hughes compared to Van Dijk, we were talking on one of the shows, and I said, listen, he's a shout for centre half next season. You were slating me for it.
I did, yeah. I did.
John Hughes comes out with this
statement.
John Hughes comes out with a statement the next week, and it was the headline in the show.
See the thing, Lawrence, right? Every time you make a faux pas on this show, it ends up as a meme on every Rangers website, forum and Twitter page. But when you're as prophetic as you were about Leo Hjelde, nobody goes back and clips that and turns it into a video,
I'm sure Kelvin might, but...
if you ask him.
Aye. Well, listen, young Hjelde, Tony's right, experience is the name we give to mistakes. But I remember speaking to my dad about it. Lisbon Lions didn't become the Lisbon Lions overnight. The early 60s were terrible time for Celtic, and a lot of the players developed into the players that won the European Cup because of the experience they were allowed time to get. I'm not suggesting I've got years to do it, but we're never going to make players unless we give them the chance to make mistakes or give them the minutes on the park. And I think he's a boy that deserves it. And if they don't get the minutes on the park, they'll leave. That's
already
the good ones will leave.
Yeah, there's already interest in Hjelde. I think Leeds United are looking at him pretty closely. on the point of Luka Connell, Tony, I might be wrong, but I just didn't feel he had that running about him. He didn't have that tempo about him that Ange Postecoglou has gone on about time and time again. It's interesting that Alan Morrison has also mentioned the high regains. Now, I'm using that term as if obviously I'm au fait with the stats and analysis of football, but I'm going to have it. So the high regains is something that Alan didn't think would have fitted with Turnbull or Griffiths in an Ange Postecoglou team. Do you think Luka Connell comes into that bracket? And if so, where does he fit? Because you can't possibly put him from Queen's Park last season to the 5th tier next season. That's a step back for the kid.
I mean, this is a boy that played championship football for Bolton, so he's clearly got ability. But as Lawrence has said there, managers, no matter who they manage, it's horses for courses. My dad used to always say that. He ran amateur teams and he always said to me, you need horses for courses. And if Luka Connell's going to prove himself not to be a runner in an Ange Postecoglou team, then you do see him struggling to see where he's going to fit in. So he's going to have to get his head around that he might have to put in a shift to go along with the fact that you can pick a pass here and there and, you can play football. Nobody's doubting your ability, but, ability alone in an Ange Postecoglou team might not be enough. You need to do the dirty work too. You need to graft. And I think that's the message he's trying to get through to all the players. And, that came across in the clip. We don't stop. We celebrate. We stop at half time and we celebrate when it's over if we win. But he wants you to put in a shift. And people say that should be a prerequisite. But it's not for every footballer. Because a lot of them, as you say, look disinterested, call them lackadaisical, lazy, whatever. The manager will not have that. You have to be constantly on the move, or at least thinking about what's happening around you, seeing the game in pictures and, on your toes, or, not caught on your heels, on your toes at all times. And if that's the way he wants you to play, then you're going to have to contribute. But he stated that from the off. So it's not as if he's asking you to do something that you're incapable of doing. He's telling you, you will graft. And if you don't graft, you'll not be on my team, regardless of how good a player you might think you are, or I might think you are. If you're not going to give me effort, allied to your skill and ability, then you might not be part of my plans. I think that's fair enough.
I think so. I really do. And there's a few points coming in that Lee Dungable, for example, asking if I'm hiding in a cave today. Well, the pre-match was in the studio and the post-match is in my kitchen. But for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you'll notice that my clock is stopped. So I need to dig out a AA battery for that. The other player I was going to talk about, he's been mentioned in some of the comments, is Ralston. So Anthony Ralston played in Brendan Rodgers' very first game in charge of the club. We spoke about it this afternoon rather. So he came on as a sub. At that time, he was 17 years of age, Tony. We're talking 5 years ago. I look at the player today, I don't see how he's progressed from that young player coming through the ranks 5 years ago. Now, I'm not trying to give him a hard time, but he just doesn't look comfortable yet 5 years down the line as a Celtic player. What's your thoughts on that? We've just handed him a new one-year deal.
Well, do you know what? My thoughts on that would be, let's do a compare and contrast exercise and see where Hjelde is in 5 years' time. Right? So take it from now. You said he's 17, the same age as Ralston was when he broke into the Celtic team. Hjelde's breaking into the Celtic team at 17. I bet in 5 years' time, Leo Hjelde's taking his career to great heights. There are some Celtic players who come in at a young age and you just get that feeling that they might not cut the mustard. Ralston's one of them for me. I think, could be wrong in this, but I trust my judgment. I feel that Mikey Johnson falls into that category too. That's my own personal views, So I've seen enough to suggest that their future probably lies elsewhere. But I think Ralston was given a deal because of the lack of personnel.
Yeah.
At the club, and it was a needs-must job. So again, somebody's made that decision, rightly or wrongly. I'll err in the fact that I think it might be wrongly, because I just don't see enough from Ralston to say to me he's a certain starter. You know, I'm not a sage like Lawrence who can tell you that Hjelde's a certain starter. You know what I mean? I aspire to be a sage like Lawrence. So that's my thoughts.
Well, we've got a sage in Lawrence. We've got something of a savant in you, Tony Haggerty. I'm not sure what I am. Rod, I was going to call him Rod. Stuart Red, Scotland, my site's terrible. The Norwegian boy looked a decent player. Yeah, a massive takeaway from this game is the performance of Leo Hjelde. I'm not about to compare him to anybody because I don't think that's useful for the player. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing him developing, and it needs to be as part of the first team squad. And finally, Liam Reid comes in to point out that he's glad Ange's given youth a chance. There's an element of the fact that it's a good fit there because Ange likes to work with youth players, but also coupled with the fact that at this moment in time, he really doesn't have a choice because of the depth of the squad, particularly at the back. Now, Lawrence Conley, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. Thanks for reminding me that you were the first to say Hjelde was going to be a player. Tony Haggerty, thank you again for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind. And just a wee reminder to everybody, we really appreciate everybody getting involved in the comments section. We know that you're watching on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. And I mean, it's an unusual time for us to go out on ACSOM, but we had 1,200 live viewers for most of the part of that broadcast. So we really appreciate it. And if you are on YouTube and you want to win prizes, we're giving prizes away every single month simply for subscribing to the channel. So get onto YouTube, subscribe, and you might win something like a BPI Platinum Disc awarded to the band The Verve for 2.1 million sales of urban hymns. Enjoy the rest of your night. Hopefully you will get the result this evening that you desire, and we'll see you again at 12:30 tomorrow on A Celtic State of Mind.